directed. I made my family disappear.
Joe Pesci didn't just scare Macaulay Culkin on screen, he left an everlasting mark.
I'm going through all your private stuff. You better come out and pound me. Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
And that was only the beginning of what the cast later revealed. Off camera, the best moments that would have been TV gold happened. Some moments were never planned. Others were carefully staged illusions. Was it really a mistake for Pesci to bite too hard? And why does Candy's tiny paycheck still haunt the cast decades later? Join us as we find out what the Home Alone cast fan never knew. Joe Pesci actually injured Macaulay Culkin. Joe Pesci did more than play a terrifying burglar. He left a mark that Macaulay Culkin still carries. During rehearsal for the scene where Harry threatens to bite off Kevin's fingers, Pesci stayed locked in character and bit down for real. Hard enough to break the skin. Culkin still has the tooth-shaped scar on his finger today. That moment rattled everyone on set. It was the only time the cast ever saw Pesci panic. This was an Academy Award-winning actor, fresh off playing Tommy DeVito in Goodfellas, suddenly realizing he had hurt a child. The mood shifted fast. What most people never knew is that the bite was not an isolated mistake. Pesci's method was intentional. He chose psychological pressure over friendliness. He kept his distance from Culkin during the entire shoot. No jokes, no small talk. Barely a word between takes. On set, he treated the 10-years-old exactly like someone he planned to rob. The result shows up on the screen. Kevin's fear does not feel rehearsed because it was not. Culkin later explained that his reactions were real. He was responding to an adult who made himself genuinely intimidating. That tension became part of the performance, baked into the blocking, the camera angles, and the final edit. Years later, Culkin says he is proud of the scar. To him, it is proof that he survived the experience. A strange badge of honor from a film that became a holiday institution. And that raises another question. If Pesci's fear was carefully engineered, what about Daniel Stern's scene with the tarantula? Was that terror just as real? Daniel Stern had a real spider walking across his face. The moment Marv screams while a tarantula crawls across his face was not a trick. Daniel Stern agreed to let a real spider do it. No computer graphics, no animatronics, no prop department safety net. The tarantula was real, and its name was Barry. Stern accepted the setup under one hard condition. One take, one shot. Then it was over. The crew rolled cameras, knowing there would be no second chance. A live animal, a locked frame, and an actor who could not flinch. Here is the part no one saw. The scream that burnt itself into pop culture never happened on set. Tarantulas react badly to loud sounds. A sudden scream could have triggered a defensive bite. So Stern had to act in complete silence, his mouth stretched wide, his eyes filled with panic. Every facial muscle tightened in pure fear. Not a sound came out. As the spider crossed his face, he silently mouthed a plea for help while staying perfectly still. Barry kept walking, calm and unbothered, hitting his marks like a seasoned performer. The shriek audiences remember was added later in post-production during sound design. In theaters in 1990, kids believed they were watching a man scream in real time. What they were actually seeing was a controlled, silent performance under real risk. John Candy regretted his tiny paycheck. Gus Polinski, the polka king of the Midwest, appears for barely 5 minutes and somehow owns the entire movie. John Candy filmed that role in a single 23-hour marathon, and almost none of what people remember was written on the page. The Kenosha Kickers, the polka hats, that rambling funeral home story about leaving little Ticky there all day. All of it came straight from Candy. He showed up as a favor to John Hughes, stepped onto the soundstage for one day, and built the character in real time. No script beats, no polished dialogue, just instinct, timing, and years of improving muscle memory. Director Chris Columbus later said, "The funeral parlor monologue happened around 4:30 in the morning. The crew was exhausted, running on fumes. Cameras shook because people behind them were laughing too hard to hold steady." Catherine O'Hara, who had worked with Candy for years on Second City television, knew better than to force a response. She let the moment breathe and reacted naturally, which is exactly what the scene needed. It was pure chemistry, captured in long takes while the coverage rolled and no one wanted to yell cut. For 23 straight hours of unscripted brilliance, John Candy was paid $414, a standard day rate. Nothing more. Years later, Candy admitted he regretted that deal. By then, the movie had exploded. It became the highest-grossing live-action comedy ever released, holding that record for 21 years. The studio walked away and lost so much. Warner Brothers did not just pass on Home Alone. They shut it down. The studio first agreed to make the film for $10 million. On paper, it looked safe. Once John Hughes and Chris Columbus moved into pre-production, reality hit. The scale was bigger. The set builds were expensive. The schedule was tight. The budget climbed toward $14.7 million. That number spooked the executives. Funding was pulled. The project was canceled mid-development. The message was clear. A small kid comedy was not worth the risk. The studio walked away, convinced it would flop. What they did not know was that Hughes already had a backup plan. Quietly, behind the scenes, he had been talking to 20th Century Fox. Fox read the same script. They saw the same budget. They did not blink. They greenlit the film, covered the higher costs, and took over the production without changing the creative vision. When the movie hit theaters, it exploded. It became the highest-grossing film of 1990. It also became the highest-grossing live-action comedy ever released at the time. That record held for 21 years until The Hangover Part 2 finally passed it in 2011. 2 years later, Home Alone. 2, Lost in New York, repeated the success and locked the property into franchise status. Merchandising, reruns, holiday syndication, and long-tail revenue followed. 20th Century Fox made hundreds of millions of dollars. Warner Brothers made nothing. Not a percentage. Not a back-end deal. Zero. Inside the industry, the story is still used as a cautionary tale. A studio bailed during pre-production. Another studio trusted the material. One decision turned into one of the biggest missed opportunities in modern Hollywood. And that leaves one last question. That iconic scream was splashed across every poster and trailer. Was it carefully designed, or did it happen by accident? Macaulay Culkin's accidental scream became the movie poster. That image, Kevin with his hands pressed to his cheeks, mouth wide, eyes wide, screaming, is everywhere. Posters, merchandise, parodies. For 35 years, it has defined Home Alone, and it almost did not exist. Director Chris Columbus gave Macaulay Culkin clear instructions. Put on the aftershave, react, drop your hands, Then Scream. Simple, precise, professional guidance for a 10-year-old. On the first take, Culkin ignored part of it. He kept his hands on his face and let out a piercing, high-pitched shriek. The crew exploded in laughter. Columbus watched the playback and knew immediately they had captured something extraordinary. That improvised moment, a 10 years old bending the rules of direction, became the single most iconic image of the film. It inspired countless Halloween costumes and endless parodies, and became one of the most recognizable cinematic shots of all time. And if a spontaneous scream became the defining image, what about that old gangster movie Kevin uses to scare the burglars? Surely, that must be a real classic film too. Fake movie, Fake Celebrities, was shot in a high school gym in one day. Angels with Filthy Souls, the black and white gangster film Kevin plays to scare the pizza delivery man and the wet bandits, was never real. It did not exist before Home Alone. The entire sequence was created in a single day inside an abandoned high school gymnasium. The production team went all out. They used genuine black and white film stock and replicated harsh noir lighting techniques from the 1930s. Actors delivered lines with the kind of gruff, chain-smoking cadence you would expect from Golden Age Hollywood. Every detail was designed to convince viewers they were watching a long-lost classic. The illusion fooled casual viewers and industry insiders alike, showing the power of production design, performance, and timing. It also underscores how little time it sometimes takes to make something iconic. No weeks of shooting, no multi-million-dollar budget, just imagination and dedication. And while a fake movie fooled everyone, another detail from the film pushes boundaries differently. Buzz's girlfriend, that brutal joke, used a real girl's photo. Was putting it in the film even legal, or did they just hope no one would notice? Buzz's girlfriend was actually a boy in a wig. When Kevin spots Buzz's photos and delivers the line, "Buzz, your girlfriend, woof," it becomes one of the most quoted insults in film history. Millions of people laughed, repeated it, and memorized it. What fans never knew was the moral dilemma behind that moment. The filmmakers faced a problem. Using a real teenage girl's photo would mean attaching her face to a joke that millions would see forever. Even in a movie where burglars get hit with paint cans, it felt cruel. Chris Columbus made a choice that the cast still calls the most wholesome decision in the entire production. Devin Rattray, who played Buzz, says the boy volunteered eagerly, though he likely had no idea he would become part of one of the most quoted punchlines in holiday cinema. The joke landed perfectly. Audiences laughed as intended, and no real teenager had to bear the burden of ridicule for decades. It became a small but telling example of the production's priorities. Get the laugh, but protect real people. Of course, the irony is hard to miss. The boy in the wig ended up being roasted by the entire world anyway. His brief moment of heroism in protecting someone else's reputation turned him into an accidental icon of comedy embarrassment. The story shows how much thought went into even the smallest details. It was not just about a gag. It was about ethics, responsibility, and timing. The production balanced humor with humanity, proving that careful decision-making can enhance comedy without hurting anyone. They kept a real girl safe from decades of ridicule. But even with those precautions, the crew still had to handle a bigger challenge. Could they keep the movie safe from Joe Pesci's Oscar-winning intensity on a set rated PG? Joe Pesci couldn't stop swearing at children. Harry Lime muttered, seethed, and exploded across the screen like a pressure cooker about to blow. What most viewers didn't know is that Joe Pesci was not just acting. He was fighting every instinct in his body. Fresh off a year of Goodfellas, where he dropped F-bombs like punctuation and won an Academy Award, Pesci was wired for adult R-rated rage. So, a PG set was torture. Every time Kevin swung a paint can, every iron to the skull, every blowtorch blast, Pesci's muscle memory screamed profanity. Chris Columbus constantly pulled him aside. "Joe, children's movie. Kids are everywhere. You cannot say that." Pesci tried. Words slipped. The tension was real. That's when he invented what the cast calls cartoon cursing. Furious gibberish, nonsense sounds that were pure emotion, channeled like Yosemite Sam after Bugs Bunny outsmarts him for the 100th time. Columbus suggested a clever trick. Whenever an F word wanted to escape, say fridge instead. Somewhere in the final cut, if you listen closely, he probably does. The result is perfect. Pesci's Harry curses exactly how a 10-year-old imagines grown-ups curse, explosively, terrifyingly, hilariously, and completely safe for family viewing. It is menacing enough to scare the wet bandits and the audience, yet ridiculous enough to be funny. The cast calls it a masterclass in creative problem-solving. Pesci had to rewrite the rules of performance on the fly, inventing a new way to channel rage while keeping the film child friendly. He fought against a year of muscle memory, turning what could have been chaos into genius. Every growl, scream, and gibberish curse added tension, comedy, and authenticity. It made Harry Lime one of the most memorable villains in holiday movie history. Pesci's performance proves that talent is not just about skill. It's about adaptability and ingenuity under pressure. Pesci invented safe profanity, but the stunts? When Kevin took hits from paint cans and irons, those were not real. Who actually performed the brutal moves for a 10-year-old child? A 30-year-old stunt man played Kevin. Every daring stunt Kevin pulls off on screen was not Macaulay Culkin. When he climbs Buzz's shelves like a treasure hunter, when the whole thing collapses on top of him, when he slips on ice, or when booby traps fling him across the rooms, it was Larry Nicholas, a 30-year-old stunt performer short enough to pass for a child on camera. Nicholas handled everything that would have sent a real 10-year-old straight to the emergency room. Unstable furniture, high falls, swinging paint cans, and even collapsing sets. The cast, especially Culkin, watched him endure some stunts dozens of times. Culkin remembers the collapsing shelf scene vividly, seeing a grown man get buried under wood and metal repeatedly as the set fell like a Jenga tower, take after take after take. On screen, it looked funny, chaotic, and effortless, but it was brutal physical labor. Clever camera angles and editing magic kept the illusion perfect. Audiences never noticed that Kevin occasionally became a tiny adult acrobat mid-scene. Every harrowing moment on screen was Nicholas absorbing the danger, not a 10-year-old child. The cast jokes that some of those hits deserved combat pay given the sheer physicality and risk involved. Nicholas's work turned Kevin McAllister into cinema's most dangerous child, and yet the audience never had to worry about a real kid getting hurt. Every paint can swing, every icy fall, and every booby trap that sent Kevin flying was meticulously coordinated, rehearsed, and executed by a professional stuntman, masked by the magic of filmmaking. It was a partnership between a child actor and stunt performer that created the illusion of fearless adventure. Every laugh, gasp, and cheer the audience felt came with a hidden layer of expertise and danger handled off-camera. Kevin's physical comedy depended on Nicholas's skill, timing, and bravery, making him one of the unsung heroes of the film. While Culkin became the face of every perilous gag, Nicholas was the body taking the hits, building the movie's legacy one stunt at a time. A grown man transformed into a child for stunts, but who almost refused the chance to give the film its magical, unforgettable score. John Williams almost said no. The magical, heart-tugging score that makes every booby trap in Home Alone feel festive rarely existed. Director Chris Columbus had originally hired Bruce Broughton. Early trailers even listed his name in the credits. Then a scheduling conflict with the rescuers down under forced Broughton to drop out. Weeks before the music was due, the production had no composer. In a mix of panic and humor, Columbus said, "Well, what if we ask John Williams?" The room laughed. John Williams, the man behind Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jaws, E.T., and nearly every score that makes you cry, was not expected to score a slapstick kids' comedy about paint cans and burglars. But Williams said yes. He watched the rough cut and described it in a single word: enchanted. He saw a small, chaotic Christmas comedy as an opportunity to compose original holiday music, to build a new Christmas sound from scratch. He turned a family farce into a canvas for something timeless. The result was Somewhere in My Memory. The music instantly lifted the movie, gave emotion to Kevin's mischief, and framed every booby trap with festive wonder. It earned Williams 2 Academy Award nominations and elevated Home Alone from a fun family movie into a true holiday tradition. The cast calls it a miracle. The greatest Christmas soundtrack of the 1990s exists only because of a Disney scheduling conflict and a phone call everyone assumed was a joke. Williams turned last-minute chaos into enduring magic. The music gives every scene weight, tension, and joy, making audiences laugh, gasp, and feel genuinely moved at the same time. It is impossible to imagine the film without it. And while Williams created musical wonder, the movie still demanded visual daring. How did the filmmakers make a 10-year-old appear to launch down the stairs at impossible speed without anyone getting hurt? The sledge defied physics, so they built a secret ramp. That shot of Kevin blasting down the stairs on a sledge and shooting straight out the front door looks effortless on screen, like a tiny Olympic bobsledder in action. Behind the camera, it was a nightmare. The staircase in the Winnetka house does not line up with the front door. Not even close. If Kevin had tried it for real, he would have slammed into a wall, not glided gracefully into the snow. The crew tried everything. Test sledges went down again and again, veering wildly like shopping carts with broken wheels. Left, right, sideways, never where they needed them. After 10 failed attempts, they admitted defeat. This was not a filmmaking problem anymore. This was physics winning. Their solution was pure 1990s movie magic. They built a custom ski ramp inside the house, rigged the sledge with hidden wheels, and used precise camera angles to cheat perspective. Empty tests launched the sledge 30 feet out the doorway, way too far. They adjusted angles, tweaked the ramp, and finally got the trajectory right. The person flying through the doorway was not Macaulay Culkin. It was Larry Nicholas again, the 30-year-old stunt double who could pass for a child on camera. Nicholas took every hit, braced every launch, and made the impossible look effortless. The cast jokes that the scene is really Hollywood versus a Chicago staircase, and for a moment, physics almost won. Every element of that iconic shot relied on careful timing, stunt coordination, and visual trickery. It looks instantaneous and effortless, but every frame is meticulously engineered. Nicholas's skill, combined with camera tricks, made it feel like a 10-year-old was performing Olympic-level stunts. The scene remains one of the most memorable visual moments in holiday film history, a testament to collaboration between stunt performers, directors, and cinematographers. Every sledge ride, crash, and flight was orchestrated to balance danger, humor, and safety. They conquered impossible physics with ingenuity and movie magic. But the question remains, Kevin's elaborate booby trap plans, were they really drawn by a 10-year-old genius or a professional artist crafting the master plan? Kevin's battle plan was drawn by a 10 years with misspellings. That crayon-covered map showing Kevin's elaborate booby trap strategy with crooked arrows and misspelt words was genuinely drawn by Macaulay Culkin. Every shaky line, every uneven letter, captures the confidence of a 10-year-old who truly believes he can outsmart two grown men using nothing but household items. That energy is pure, authentic, and unmistakably childlike. The traps themselves, though, were engineered by production designer John Muto and his crew. They followed John Hughes's script like a blueprint for maximum pain, meticulously planning every nail, paint can, and tripwire. To make the map look convincingly kid-made, Muto, who is right-handed, practiced by drawing his own version with his left hand. That's how deliberate misspellings made it into the final piece. When it came time to test the traps, pure Hollywood stunt work took over. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern did not actually absorb the pain of blowtorch burns, falling irons, or swinging paint cans. Every impact was handled by skilled stunt doubles, professionals trained to take hits safely while keeping the illusion convincing. The stunts were repeated dozens of times, choreographed to blend seamlessly with Culkin's reactions. The combination of authentic child artistry and expert stunt coordination created the perfect balance of comedy, danger, and awe. Every trap, from the micro detail of a hand-drawn map to the precise timing of a swinging paint can, required layers of planning, creativity, and ingenuity. The production blurred the line between a child's imagination and Hollywood expertise, letting Kevin's world feel real without ever risking the actor's safety. Culkin's map gave life to Kevin's cunning, but the film's chaos extended far beyond the house. But all those frantic travelers in O'Hare Airport, were they professional extras or actual confused passengers caught up in the madness? Real airport passengers accidentally became movie stars. The McAllisters racing through O'Hare Airport looks like perfectly choreographed chaos, but a surprising number of people in the background weren't actors at all. They were real travelers, rushing to catch early morning flights, completely unaware that they were about to appear in one of the most beloved Christmas movies of all time. The production could not close an active airport terminal. Airports need to function. So while the crew focused on Catherine O'Hara and her paid extras, regular passengers drifted through the wide shots. Look closely, and you can spot them. Confused faces, hurried steps, people checking watches, wondering why a film crew is chasing a frantic family through their terminal at 6 in the morning. The result is uncanny. That mix of staged action and real-life distraction gives the sequence an authenticity that could never be replicated on a closed set. Somewhere, there are business travelers and families who have no idea they are immortalized in Home Alone, blinking into movie history for just a few seconds, but for 35 years, they've been replayed in living rooms around the world every holiday season. Those random travelers may have unknowingly stumbled into movie history, But while the airport chaos feels lived in and real, does the McAllister's mansion hold the same level of authenticity? Did they film inside the actual home of the family in the story? Or was it something else entirely? McAllister House was a high school gym, and the basement was a swimming pool. That iconic McAllister mansion, the perfect suburban dream for a kid left home alone at Christmas, barely exists in reality. The production used the real Winnetka, Illinois house for exactly 3 things: exterior shots, the staircase, and 1 hallway. Everything else, the kitchen where Kevin writes his grocery list, the basement with the furnace, the attic hiding Buzz's this by BTPs, the parents' deep bedroom, and every booby-trap battleground was built from scratch inside a gymnasium at New Trier High School. The real house was too small for Hollywood cameras, lighting rigs, stunt setups, and 2 grown men repeatedly falling downstairs. Production designer John Muto constructed a massive 2-story interior set with removable walls, adjustable ceilings, and space to safely film elaborate slapstick chaos. The flooded basement scene, shot in the school's swimming pool, transformed into a suburban disaster zone. The house may have been fake, but that sparkling winter wonderland? Not quite what it seemed. The cast revealed that most of the snow came from a kitchen, and it smelled horrendous. Filming began in February 1990, and the crew hoped for a Midwest blizzard to save on production costs. Day 2 delivered a miracle. A real snowstorm blanketed the exteriors in perfect Christmas white. Everything else, especially indoor snow and falling flakes for close-ups, was fake, made from dried potato flakes. On camera, it looked magical. But once the day ended, the flakes melted into warm, rotting, mashed potatoes. The cast and crew had to navigate a set that literally smelled like decomposing dinner for weeks. To cover the ground, they layered white cloth, shaved ice, and a wax and plastic snow mixture so convincing it was later donated to the Lyric Opera of Chicago for stage productions. The result on screen feels colder, cleaner, and more magical than most real winters. Behind every cozy scene and festive exterior lie layers of ingenious set design, practical effects, and patience through chaos. Next time you see Kevin running through that neighborhood, remember, half of it was a high school gym filled with mashed potatoes, and every frame was crafted to make the magic of Christmas feel real. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, leave nice comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting content. Check out another interesting video by clicking on the video appearing on your screen right now.